Okay, this is Laura Jane here, sitting at home, so cozy on the phone with, that was a little rap, with probably my closest friend I'm interviewing for this series, but one of the first people I wanted to talk to about this. So that's so cool that someone I'm so close to is someone I want to ask questions first of. So I have Denise Dare here with me, and some of you know her, and then even more of you will get to know her through this. And so we're here to talk about some of our play and changing perspectives and practices with this topic of lightening up. And in parentheses now, we'll say stop waiting. We're letting go of that part of the label more and more. And just a little focused conversation and interview to touch on some of how we might address the whole weight thing and shift how we're feeling about that, change how we're feeling in our bodies and in our lives, and just feel better and even look better, and all the reasons we want to do that. So we're going to dive in with Denise and touch on some really cool topics, I know. And again, just a different perspective on all this than you probably heard. And although Denise is someone who does really know a lot about nutrition and eating really healthy, and she's very pure in so many ways, and I know some of that will come out, but I'm also really interested in Denise and how she knows about mindset and approach and the deeper aspects of what we can do and how we can feel. So it'll be fun to see what comes out. And any more on the introduction I'll say is that I know Denise is kind of like me, where she's still feeling into her official titles, or maybe her titles are always changing. So some of the ways we've had Denise help us and work with us so far is as a happiness artist, and definitely a life coach and a yoga lifestyle teacher and an actual yoga instructor as well, and with a strong background in education with all ages of people, and a really involved, inspiring yoga mom, teaching and living it and leading a really balanced, pure life and inspiring people every day online and when she meets them. And so, yeah, that's what I'll say about you so far, Denise. I don't take it all up with the accolades,
that was the most beautiful introduction. Thank you. Oh, my heart is full. Wow, that's really lovely. I am
that's fun to get to do that.
So stoked to chat with you, and so appreciative that you invited me to be part of this new way of, seeing ourselves. I think it's pretty awesome what you're doing, and I'm grateful for you.
Well, yeah, and I think I'm so aware that just having you as a friend in my life has helped me even come to the place to be ready to offer this kind of a program, just the conversations we've had and the ways we've even come to realizations in our conversations. And so, wow, yeah, thank you for being a person who helps me let this stuff come through. And all in the name of, because you and I both love people so much, and especially women, and even resonate a lot as moms with other moms, and especially in the idea of blending our best lives and our best feeling selves with a life with the children that we can dream of. So that's fun. We have fun thinking about how we can really contribute in that realm. And that really is so cool that most of the moms in this, all the moms in this program fit that, and the moms who might listen. And a lot of the moms are even homeschooling moms like you and I both are. And, so it's really cool to think of the types of people we're attracting to listen to this and let it sink in as we're all learning through this. Like, you and I will be changed by this conversation, too.
Oh,
that's what's
for
so cool.
sure.
Like,
yeah.
We're just like, the one kind of bringing it up, but, that's what you and I share, I think, is that we're both sharing from what we're learning, and we're right in there, too, and with the humility of, like, yeah, I've learned this stuff because for me, too, this has been, these things have been issues I've wanted to move away from, and, yeah, a strong desire for good personal.
Yes, completely. Yeah. And I love the yoga mom aspect, because living a yoga lifestyle is so vastly different when we have children. And I think a lot of the sort of mainstream yoga talk doesn't necessarily include that inspiration about how to integrate living a yoga life and staying aligned and finding like that or weaving that dance between, taking care of ourselves and taking care of our babies. And I think there's so much to be said about that. So I'm so stoked that you're sharing that and leading the way with that.
That's so true, and that's such a good point that I know for me it changed so much once I became a mom, and a lot about, oh my gosh, how am I still going to live this life if I'm not, say, going to classes, for instance, and how am I going to bring it more into my moments, even if I have someone, little one with me, that I need to be holding most of the day, and or just busyness of family. Yeah. Okay. So exciting to think that we get to serve this segment and really help us all own it, and especially in a realm with how we're feeling with things like body image and how we think we feel about our quote-unquote weight. I know you and I both are so over that word, period. And, so let's get into that right away. Why would you suggest, I know as well, we might move away from even talking about it or thinking about it as a weight thing and into something else? So,
I just feel like really the heart of it is about love, right? And so it's about how much, how deeply, how completely, how unconditionally we can love ourselves. Whether that's looking at ourselves in the mirror and getting to the point where we can say, I love you no matter what, or, whether that's being willing to make it a priority to choose nourishing things to put into our body and to choose kind thoughts that we think about ourselves, right? There's so many different ways that we can love ourselves, and the whole point is so that we can cultivate more well-being, not so that we have a certain weight or we look like a certain person or anything like that, although that can be a secondary repercussion. The whole point is so that we can feel more connected, mind, body, spirit, all of who we are, and so that we can feel well and live well and be well and do all these wonderful, amazing things that life gives us opportunity to do without feeling weighed down by not like really being in our bodies or really loving our bodies.
Yeah. I love how you just said weighed down. And, me, I'm not one to touch on like contrasty elements so much, but, I love that with you. I feel a real like passion and even like a ferocity about your feelings about, these kinds of things. And maybe because you, like me, have known so many people, including ourselves, who've been so tortured by this other approach we've all been trying and even making ourselves unwell. And so anything else you want to add about why, why even more it's important to make that shift as far as, just how we're even conceiving of it and how that's affecting us?
I just think so much that it's our freedom and privilege to choose a different perspective than what mainstream our culture has given us. That there's this certain version of ourselves that we have to be in order to be happy. I think it's actually a complete opposite approach, that the more that we feel good in our bodies, in our lives, in ourselves, then the more we shift into living the life that we want, into, having everything, doing everything, being everything that we want. I think it really starts within, loving ourselves and feeling good about ourselves regardless, from the inside out, right? And then the other thing, too, I wanted to mention also is there's a branch of yoga called Tantra that has this vision that everything is sacred, right? So including our physical body. It's not just this separate piece that, we only need to focus on our spiritual selves. Our physical bodies are part of this journey, too. And so if we can start seeing our physical selves as like the sacred vessel that carries us through life, then we can start to honor and nurture and appreciate her and be willing to prioritize taking care of her, right? Because a lot of times for moms, I know this has happened to me before, it's like there's some guilt or worth issues around being willing to sit down for a meal for ourselves. Like we're running around serving everybody else and not willing to make it important that we nourish ourselves, or we're not willing to schedule time to take care of ourselves, whether that's taking a walk or going to a yoga class or, hanging out with a friend. Like we have to start reprioritizing ourselves as equally important as the other people in our lives so that we can better love and nurture ourselves.
Yeah, that just says so much, and it's so funny how you and I have seen, even those of us moms who call ourselves yoga moms, we know enough to have done some yoga and to even think we like it and to think, and to probably doing a lot more than a lot of moms maybe to try to feel good and center ourselves. But even we have all seen ourselves get, malnourished, and I was trying to say two different words at the same time, malnourished, dehydrated, totally out of whack emotionally and burnt out, and trying to mother from there, again, is like the big reason here. Like, we all, I think, we want to really enjoy this motherhood thing and be who we can be with our kids, and that's such a foundational reason. And then something else I wanted to mention from what you had said was when you were talking about being willing to see that we have this freedom and privilege to choose and what version of our happy, most full of well-being self is going to look like. And I love that, especially for this kind of thing, to let ourselves really be open about what version of us is going to be well-being and to really personalize it. I know you and I really resonate on the importance of that. And even to be creative with it, and even playful, not too disciplined, not too routine, and even just feeling it out and letting it be a day-by-day attending to where you are. And again, just to consider, again, if you're going back to the whole weight thing or lightening up, but this is a way you can lighten up yourself and your life and your approach with all this, to consider how different you'll operate if you're operating more from this self-love, fit in the things I love premise, and even, seeing your body as part of that puzzle, and how that's going to manifest, again, even in how you probably look and feel and what you do end up eating and how you do end up, feeling within that whole realm. It's exciting to think it could be that easy, too, though. I love that when I realize, like, oh, my gosh, if the worst here is that we just need to love ourselves better, I mean, it's actually a really good prescription. That's actually really hilarious that it's so hard for us. It's so funny that it's so hard for us. But, I know. That's where we're all, everybody's getting on this page that, like, oh, and I think we see that our kids really seem to come in with that, and we can help preserve that more for future generations. So, we're cleaning up our field. Is
too, like the whole self-love thing, well-being, lightening up, all of this is a moment-by-moment, day-by-day practice. I don't think that we ever get to this place and we're like, okay, I'm done. I feel like we are constantly evolving and constantly going to be challenged and growing and learning and expanding in our consciousness and awareness. So I feel like it's just a shift in our lifestyle as far as deciding that we matter enough to care about ourselves. And then that influences thoughts, words, deeds, actions, everything, so that ultimately we create a lifestyle that we're totally stoked about. We like getting up in the morning. We like doing the things that we have planned. We like the people that we're around. We start to, kind of cultivate and create what it is that we want in our life so that life feels good to us. And when life feels good, things flow, including energy, and we start to release what we don't want or need, and we start to invite what we do want and need.
Yes.
So it's such an energetic approach rather than this feeling of fighting against our bodies and depriving ourselves of what we want. That just creates more resistance and more self-loathing and more anger and sadness that then gets stored in the body generally as fat. So the more that we can energetically shift our perspective into honestly loving our experience, all of us, the more that we can easily see that vision that we have and that we hold for ourselves.
Gosh, I love how you say that, love our experience versus like love ourselves, because that's like a more tangible way to love ourselves is to love our experience, in the ways that we can add more love into right now, whether it's choosing something we love or, but then I love too, I was thinking how for you, the word lifestyle includes the mindset, like that's part of the lifestyle and the perspective. And I love that you flip it to the more just like honoring versus depriving. Like, that's pretty clear right there. Like how different will we feel, for example, with our body and our mind, but, just how we're feeling if we're more in that mode of thinking I'm honoring this vessel versus I'm freaking cutting that weight, I'm so pissed at you, buddy, or, all the other things you do. Or,
right?
you're so ugly right there, or why are you like this? Or, the things, that I'm tuned into with being into the therapy of things with the postures and, hearing how we'll talk about when we have aches and pains and how we'll deal with that and our expectations. And, so, just how well-being can look so different when we're coming out like this. And then that I love that we know our mindset gets better, the better we're feeling. Like, the more nourished we are in these various ways, the thoughts are just going to get better, as we get to higher vibrations. So it's all going to feel easier, and you'll get strengthened in that approach, too. So,
and then if you want the physiological aspect of why feeling good matters, because then we're thinking about less stress, less cortisol, more ease on the body, which means it can function at its highest potential, which means that we're getting the rest we need. We're giving ourselves permission to sleep when we need to sleep and to eat when we need to eat. We start our day in a way that feels good to us. Like, we build that foundation of a joyful life by actually giving ourselves what we need instead of fighting against it and saying, oh, what I don't need. We focus on what we do need.
Right, It's such a smart shift. And, I love that, and just how it's going to play out.
It feels so much better, right?
And the momentum of things, I think as far as energy, that I feel so clear on how there's such a momentum to things depending on where we're focused. And so, and I love that. That's like, almost like a side benefit with if you're, for instance, using the postures or what you're eating or how you're thinking, that it's actually the best thing you can do for your health and your organs and your systems. And it's like, it's also convincing. So I love that that's where it's really a holistic picture and holistic approach, that I think you and I both see and that we want to share. And to also stay personal with it, even with things like diet, right? Like, you and I have friends who are vegan, who are paleo, who are organic, who are, there's various, and it's fun to me to just see, like, oh my gosh, my 95-year-old friend Clyde is the first one who really got me to see that. Like, we really are all so different. And, maybe everybody's body does respond differently to different things. So it's nice to allow a little openness within, and that we can feel it out and feel into what ways of eating feel best to us. And that, too, that you could trust yourself and, and that you might do a blend of those things. And it's also going to involve doing the research and, talking to friends.
And I love the term eclectic. I feel like I have never really fit or have never really wanted to fit into a certain box, whether it's with health or food or education or anything. I feel like eclectic is just taking what works for us and creating, our own path around things. And especially with food, like, we have to figure out what works for us. And not everybody who, calls themselves vegan or paleo or anything gets this way, but sometimes when we label how we're doing something, we can start to get a little bit rigid about it and forget that we're always learning, and sometimes overlook things. So it's totally okay if we want to have a specific label, that's fine, but it's just important to consider that what we believe about our food also influences how it affects our body. So if we decide that we're paleo and then we go and have a crepe and we think that this crepe is horrible for our body, then it probably is. But if we can look at it like a delight and a pleasure and trust that our body will know how to use it in the best possible way, then the crepe is okay. You know what I mean? So it really has so much to do with belief and what we decide or choose to think about our food and think about our bodies and think about ourselves.
Yeah, it's exciting. And like I was mentioning to you, it is fun to just help people who think they like yoga say, oh, wow, to realize this is all could be under the scope of what we call yoga, even though you can call it all sorts of things, but it all falls under the scope of yoga as, really, again, just meaning more union, more alignment, more connection. And so I love that you get to personalize it. And eclectic, that's a really fun word, especially when it comes to food. Because I love that it allows for that changing and that, daily thing, and that you're kind of like, oh, I'm being eclectic. It just feels like international or something. I don't know. I like it. Eclectic eating and eclectic living. And that's funny because I have used that word to describe the type of yoga I teach for a long time because, and I would say, well, the person I first learned from, he had a very eclectic approach. And so I, right away knew to have it. So I totally love that word eclectic, and I'm glad you bring it back because it's good. In fact, I want to go look it up.
It's a great description.
Yeah, to be eclectic. Ooh, be eclectic. It's almost like electric. Okay, so let's see. I'm sure we're getting towards, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention one more thing, that when we hold a vision of what it is that we want for our lives, we really have to be tender and gentle and loving with ourselves, like really kind of mother ourselves in the same way that we would a precious little baby that we adore. And that if we decide that we want to eat clean, let's say, or we decide that we want to be on the mat for 10 minutes every day, or we want to get to a group class twice a week, yes, we have to prioritize those things and put them on the schedule and commit, but it's also so important to keep it really simple and take baby steps and realize, that everything is progress, and that even if that just means, okay, for the next week I'm going to start drinking a glass or two of water when I first wake up in the morning. Like, that's progress, one little thing. Or I'm going to write something I love about myself in my journal today, and then tomorrow I'm going to do it again. Like, we have to set ourselves up for success is what I'm trying to say.
I love that. And isn't that so what we haven't heard is it's about being gentle with it, and that's such a way to be loving with ourselves. And actually that's going to be way more powerful and effective and efficient and doable. And it's so different than the opposite way we've been doing it, of kind of like coming down on ourselves and, okay, it's time to, and then usually, we rebel or it doesn't work out and then we feel even worse, and so,
and then we feel like failures. And there's no race to the finish line, right? Like, this is our life. We want to create a life that we really adore. And so taking little micro steps, even just in the moment and day by day, like one little simple thing is perfect. It doesn't have to be, 180-degree change overnight. That's not sustainable, right? So it's important to just give ourselves permission to take it easy. Yeah.
Wise, and just, again, it's an act of self-love to approach it like that. And wise, too. That really works and makes sense. And I love, you and I, too, are big proponents of knowing, like, let's say you said, I'm going to go to yoga class today, and then that day you feel like, I want to stay home and take a nap instead. But that might be the best yoga for you that day. I know you and I are so on that page where it's like, it's not always about the mat practice. It's, it's the more the feeling into what's right for you right now and being willing to do that. And that's yoga, right? And so that's where
yoga doesn't have to look the way it does in, Yoga Journal and on Instagram. Like, yoga is putting your feet on the earth and looking up at the sky and giving thanks. Yoga is sitting with your family and being present with them. There's all kinds of ways to create that unity and that connection, and that's what's really transformational, is when yoga is taken off the mat, right, and it's integrated into our lives.
Yeah, and that's where it's at, really, and I think what it's intended to become, and that, like, it's an ideal way for it to become. Again, no judgment or labels on what that's going to look like. That's where it's nice to be open at, like, what's that going to look like?
All yoga,
and at different stages of life. And, but really to see it all as part of your yoga. From the moment you wake up to when you go to bed, you're, quote-unquote, doing yoga and just interested in alignment and in that yoga mode. And you might do some poses, but you might not, And you might use your breath, and you probably use your focus and your words and your imagination and even sound and, walking and dancing and all the things you and I love to expand that. So, let's see. I don't know. We might have gone a little over 30 minutes, but we're going to say it's worth it if that works for you. Because I want to talk about this little idea of how the idea of us all being creative, and maybe we've all kind of got things we've come here to do and projects that are drumming up in us, and just even the various ways we might use our creativity and how that's an energy, and how that plays in your opinion at this point, with how we're feeling in body and mind and spirit, as far as, like, how we're handling that for ourselves, whether it's, we're a songwriter or we're a gardener or we're, how we're allowing ourselves to just follow that flow and build that in as part of the recipe. How do you think that plays a role? And what do you think
I think
about
creativity is so huge. I think it's such an important aspect of living a fully realized life and,
that?
you know, coming to our highest potential in this lifetime. I feel like so often we can should ourselves out of doing the things that really feel totally aligned for us and being daring enough to create what we want to create or do what we want to do or say what we want to say. And I think that that is a big piece of what weighs people down. You know, I feel like when we are fully connected with our creative energy, then we have this freedom and this power and this passion for living that makes it like that joie de vivre, you know, that feeling like you're excited to be alive. And when that happens, the energy just flows. And when we're in that state of flow, we have happiness, we have joy, we have ease. And that doesn't mean that life is perfect. It just means that we are connected to that deeper essence of ourselves and to source energy or life energy or love energy or whatever we want to call it. We're connected to this the greatness of life. And I think that totally shifts the way we experience our lives, including how we experience our physical bodies.
Yeah. And it's just such a powerful way to flip it all. And then I do want to ask you, just because one of the things you're so powerfully bringing these days is really building a community of women in a place of sisterhood and even in this support of self-love. And, you know, even with that, I love your group on Facebook and the things you're starting to do with that more and more with the self-love sisterhood. And so how do you think that might play a role in shifting even more how we're feeling with how connected we feel with ourselves and our bodies and how we're thinking about ourselves, how we're talking about ourselves, how we're feeling when we're in a room full of other women, you know, how we're feeling in our friendships, in our communities. Like, how could that shift, you know, as we get into this idea more of sisterhood and self-love and being in that with each other and kind of changing the whole girl thing? Especially as Southern California girls, that's pretty interesting for you and I to create that because, you know, maybe we grew up in some of what the rest of the world would consider the, you know, the heat of that. And, you know, here we are kind of excited to help shift that. So tell us what you think about that.
I totally get chills just talking and thinking about that. And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I feel that when we can start to bring women together in compassion and love and kindness toward one another, it changes the whole dynamic. We become this like basket of support for one another and we feel lifted up and elevated and loved. And instead of feeling like torn down or jealous or vindictive or suspicious of other women, we can suddenly truly feel like sisters, like we are sisters of the earth and we are here on purpose and that we are all beautiful and divine, lovely creatures and that there's no reason for us to try to be like any of the other sisters that we see out here, but only be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah. That seems
so
important.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, as I
allowing uniqueness.
Yeah. And really getting to that place, and I'm not saying it's, you know, always the easiest thing because there's still going to be jealousy. There's still going to be these feelings of like, oh, I want what she has. But instead of letting it sink into jealousy and this like self-loathing, like I don't have that, instead we can shift it when we're in sisterhood and in support and love for one another. We can shift it and say, okay, I see that jealous feeling. That's because I want a life like that. I want to feel good like that. I want to be thriving. So I don't need to feel negativity toward her. I can just recognize that this is my emotions giving me guidance. And I can discern, okay, well, what is it that in my life that I would like to be different? And how can I start taking baby steps toward feeling more the way that I want to feel?
Yeah. Honoring it is like a desire, like, ooh. Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, how can we feel just great when we're at the pool with our friend and she looks hot in a bikini, you know, and we're not sure how we're feeling about ourselves that day. Like, how can that be a great feeling thing where we could just be like, oh my gosh, that's so great. She looks so good. I'm so happy for her. And, wow, that inspires me I do want that more. And, how can I take that desire more seriously in a loving, gentle way? And, yeah, and just the sisterhood of like, oh, we're all in this together. And I love even that some of the energy teachers we talk about how when we're like vibing up with people in, at a similar vibe as us, that we can see that as like, ooh, that's because I'm in that realm of feeling good, or, it's an indicator of where I'm at too and moving towards. And I love that we can celebrate the successes around us just because we want to celebrate the people we love, and to even be like, ooh, one, it's showing me if I want that, and to just, okay, then I can go towards that. And that we can say, ooh, it's a little indicator that I'm in that vibe too, I like that. It's like a little cheerleader from vibration.
Yeah, like as a reminder that it's possible to feel that way.
Yeah, I'm seeing that because I'm thinking about that. And I just saw this video my friend Hildy posted about grandmothers in a bikini contest in Brazil. And just that kind of thing is the kind of thing that'll now plant in our heads like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to feel and look like that as a grandmother. And they were all different shapes and sizes. The babe looked great, and, we're strutting their stuff. And I thought, I like that. The confidence. Too, and even how that's going to play into our choices and how we're thinking and how we're dressing and how we're walking in a room. And then again, how much more confident could we feel if we didn't feel in competition with each other as women?
Exactly.
Or we just felt in cooperation. How, if we let that go, just the energy of it, oh my gosh.
Yes. And then speaking of creativity, co-creating with other women is like one of the most powerful things we can do. And reclaiming that power as women, I think, is a really pivotal shift, within our communities, but also for life on this earth, because women are realizing how brilliant and amazing our sisters are, and the more that we start to reconnect with that truth, the more empowered each of us become individually and collectively. So yeah, I think sisterhood is so important, and if we don't feel that in our lives, then maybe just setting the intention that we want to be part of community where we feel supported and feel heard and held. Yeah. I feel like I have so many sisters on the planet now. These past 10 years have just been amazing how many I've invited into my life. Whereas, when I was 18, I felt like women, I had a few, amazing women in my life that I loved, but I was very suspicious of a lot of women and very critical and judgmental and not at all like an open, loving, kind, appreciative mindset toward women.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful to feel like I'm part of this community of sisters and that I can honor and love each individual woman for who she is and where she is without it diminishing me or making me feel less, that like it can inspire me to be stoked for who I am.
Yeah. And it's really, I love that it's such a spiritual thing to do too when you get to that thought of like namaste and we're all God within, or we're all, sacred vessels and sacred beings. It's like, oh my gosh, then why does it matter if we all look different and, we can all glow and it's all quote unquote good. I don't really even like to say good and bad anymore. So yeah, it's so exciting. And yeah, I think you and I know
shine and be beautiful lights in the world.
Yeah. And just to think how much more we'd all shine even as we let go of that whole thing of competition and how that's going to, play out for us personally and in community, in the moments we have with people and with ourselves. So that's what it's all about. Still back to the moments. More good feeling moments all around. And
coming from that place of love, the heart, everything from the heart. Bringing love and infusing it into every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, that says it so perfectly. If we can just bring it down to that if we could just infuse more love into our lives, period, whatever that means for us and however that's going to look each day, that's the strongest way to lighten up in every way. Let it rhyme.
Yes.
Okay, well, is there anything else you want to say before I would sign us out? I think we're a little over 30 minutes, but it's worth it. So,
well, I'm just stoked to get to have this conversation with you and that, we're sharing this awareness and learning and continuing to cultivate this new understanding as we go. And I'm excited to continue to co-create with you, my beautiful sister.
Yes, me too. And I look forward to hugging you live soon. So glad I get to.
Yeah.
You're not just an online friend. But I certainly have fun following you online too. So I'll make sure everyone who's listening can get in touch with you online and find the different ways to learn with you and experience what you're bringing, because it's awesome. And I know there's even a lot more coming. So it's a good time for people to connect with you. So, well, thank you so much for doing this with me. This is, answered prayers for both of us, and
Super
for me
fun.
to get to just do this kind of thing. Yeah, totally feel good in the moment. Yes, and I feel sure that people are going to really enjoy what they got out of this. So,
awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate you, Laura Jane.
Okay, namaste, my love.
Namaste.
Adios.